Good afternoon. I'd like to call the August 4th, 2015 City Council meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Francisco. Hart.
Here.
Hotchkiss.
Here.
Murillo.
Here.
Rouse.
Here.
White.
Here.
Mayor Schneider.
Here. Item 1.
Employee Recognition Service Award Pins.
Mr. Casey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Each month we like to recognize city employees for achieving milestones for their work here with the City of Santa Barbara. So I'd like to read some names into the record. There is no one present today to receive their pins in person. With 5 years of service, Simon Perez, Wastewater Collection System Operator 2 at the Public Works Department. Gerald Holcomb, Custodian at the Airport Department. With 10 years of service, Kathy Chan, Police Technician, Police Department. Herman Padilla, Parking Enforcement Officer of the Police Department. Steve Foley, Supervising Transportation Planner, Public Works Department. Garrett Reynolds, a welder fabricator with the Public Works Department. Tim Burgess, Water Resource Specialist, Parks and Recreation Department. And Jill Murray, Water Quality Research Coordinator, Parks and Recreation Department. With 15 years of service to the city, Greg Corral, Purchasing Supervisor, Finance Department. Garrett Osgood, Painter, Public Works Department. With 25 years of service to the city, Richard Brady, Grounds Maintenance Crew Leader, Parks and Recreation Department. And with 30 years of service, Chris Newhauser, Public Safety Dispatch Supervisor in the Police Department. Michael Jones, Custodian with the Public Works Department. And Jim Jenkins, Water Distribution Supervisor, Public Works Department.
Great. Well, and congratulations to them all. All right. Any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Mayor. We'd like to request after public comment, perhaps taking up a staff communication item so that Ms. Jill Zachary from our Parks and Recreation Department can fill you in about the bird refuge and what's going on there with the smell recently.
So we'll just move that item up. Do we need to make a motion to move that up or just? Okay. So is there a motion to move?
Second.
So this is to move the council and staff communications item up on the agenda to after public comment. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Great. That's unanimous. We'll do that. All right. So public comment. We have 2 minutes here at the podium, and we're going to go around the world, I think. We're going to start here with Toba, Japan. Come on up. We have a group here from our sister city of Toba. I just met with them in my office. And Ms. Matthews. Welcome.
Yes, Madam Mayor, council members, I'd like to bring up our 2015 group of student exchange kids from Santa Barbara and from Toba. Come on up and stand over here. As you can see, we have 4 children from Japan, and they are homestaying with 4 of our wonderful Santa Barbara kids, and then they will switch, and our Santa Barbara kids will go to Toba after next week. And I think your photos are being taken, so why don't you turn a little bit that way for the camera. But as many of you know, Santa Barbara is the oldest sister city, and I believe we now have the oldest student exchange program. We're going on 23 years, so we're very happy that we've been able to increase the friendships between Santa Barbara and our sister city, Toba, over this long period of time. And I'm going to let the kids introduce themselves to you. We'll start with our Japanese side.
Thank you.
Welcome.
My name is Ukyo Okayama. I'm 14 years old. Thank you.
Clearly almost 15.
Almost good. Almost good.
My name is Yuto Kiba. I'm 13 years old. Thank you.
And then their host brothers.
My name is Kai Uchiyo, and I am 13 years old.
And what school do you go to?
I'm going to Santa Barbara High School next year.
Great.
My name is Jake Donahoe, and I'm starting my second year at Locklanda Junior High.
And then the girls.
My name is Mie Matsumoto, 30 years old. Thank you. My name is Hono Terada. I am 12 years old.
And now they're American sisters.
My name is Halani Kabugos. I am 15 and starting 10th grade next year.
Which school?
Dos Pueblos.
Hi, I'm Eileen. I'm 13 years old and I'm starting Anna Kappa School. I'm really excited to go to Toba, Japan because I feel like it's important to know about different people and cultures and their traditions over there. Thank you.
And then we also have two chaperones because we don't let kids this young go by themselves. Our American chaperone this year is Anna Royer, if Anna would stand. And her counterpart is Mao Ihara, who's over here taking a lot of pictures. Thank you, Mao. So thank you all for your support. We hope to see the mayor again for the 50th anniversary of Santa Barbara-Toba Relations this coming fall. So it's a great time to be in Santa Barbara, and we thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome. What I love about this program, there are a few people who were once student exchange students a while ago, and then they grew up, got married, had kids, and now their kids are part of the program. So it's the second generation that's happened already. So have a great time in Santa Barbara, and I know you're going to have a great time going to Toba. All right, so from Toba then we're going to go to Old Spanish Days. So El Presidente and some other Old Spanish Days dignitaries are here as well. Come on up. Welcome.
We are an army today. Madam Mayor, City Council, Viva la Fiesta!
Viva!
We're about to kick off tomorrow. We wanted to bring you some goodwill. Our Fiesta girls, Flower Girls, are our ambassadors to the community. They have brought you gifts. I am not sure, can they present them to you, or how do we do that?
We allow once a year. We allow someone to come on this side of the fence, and it's always the Flower Girls. So you're welcome to come forward.
Please, girls, come forward. Let me talk to you about them as they come forward. I want to introduce our two co-chairs, Andre Kaplan on my left, and Angie Cisnero on my right. We also have our Spirit of Fiesta, Alex Ferreras. Wave your hand. And our junior Spirit of Fiesta, Isabella E. Tiarde. I'm getting closer, right? That's right. We also want to present the City Council with this year's poster. I will let you know that we're almost halfway sold out, so if anybody wants their own, please come down. In fact, the pin that we have, the thousands that we have already made, I think we're down to 200. So get down there fast. I want to say thank you all. Without the support of Santa Barbara and the City Council and the Mayor, this would never happen. And I will tell you, we're going to do everything that we can in our power to make Santa Barbara a wonderful place during Fiesta this year. Viva la Fiesta.
Viva la Fiesta. Thank you.
Viva la Fiesta!
That was the softest Viva la Fiesta I have heard all week. So that's okay. We'll make up for it later.
Viva la Fiesta!
There you go. That's a little better. Thank you. It's already off to a great start. We look forward to opening the Mercados tomorrow. So, all right. Now to other public comment. We have Priscilla Hernandez.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. This is my first time actually coming to City Council, and I'm really honored. I'm the club director at the Westside Boys and Girls Club, and I wanted to just come and talk to you about the wonderful things that are going on at the club, the changes of, the programming that we have for the summer for the kids. We have Summer Brain Gain, which is a program to reduce learning loss with our members who are from primarily socially and economically low-income families. They're doing great things. It's a 6-week program that is Common Core based on language, art, science, social studies, and the kids they're progressing so wonderfully. They're also being introduced to different kinds of sports like tennis, golf, and they will have volleyball as well, and these are the first time for some of these children here, so I want to welcome you to come and visit us if you haven't. The door is always open. In the Summer Core the Summer Brain Game program, the children have themes each week, and what they are learning every day they have to present on Friday. So one of the goals for them was to come to City Council. So I did bring some of our members who were real eager at the beginning of last week, and now as the day came, they started getting a little nervous.
That's
so
all right.
please bear with them.
Is it Juan and Diego and Jasmine?
And Jasmine.
you
So
gonna come on
please welcome them.
Come on up. All the way down there. Okay.
Hi, my name is Juan Hernandez Castrejón Abel. I'm a member from the West Side Boys and Girls Club. I am 8 years old, and at the Boys and Girls Club we get to do art, computer lab, brain games. We play in the playground. We get triple play in the gym. We get homework center, and we do art, and we get free food, and we also have 2 basketball courts, 3 foosball tables, 1 pool table, 1 bumper pool table, and 2 chess. Thank you.
So Juan was we were just talking about how he was an okay chess player, he said, but at the Boys and Girls Club, he's been able to play chess every day, and he feels he's a way better player now. So, that's something that is being introduced to them as well.
Great.
Hi, my name is Diego Martinez Rubio. I'm 10 years old, and I'm a member of the Boys and Girls Club. What the Boys and Girls Club means to me is happiness, because when I get there, everybody's happy and everybody's playing in the gym or in the games room. I learned a lot in the Boys and Girls Club by the programs that we have, like Brain Gain, Computer Lab, Gym, Games Room, and Art Room, and Music Box. Some of our things changed in the club, like we got new tables, we got a new basketball game. Yeah, a basketball game, and we got new chairs for Brain Game.
Thank you. Awesome.
Hi, my name is Jasmine de Jesus, and I am 10 years old, and I'm a member of the Boys and Girls Club. And what the Boys and Girls Club means to me is family, because we all care about each other. And the Boys and Girls Club is important to me because the staff are caring and fun and kind. And the programs are exciting to learn about, and in Brain Gang, I've been learning more stuff that I haven't learned about, and I've learned more than I have learned before, and
that's it. Okay. That's plenty. Great. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then, Michael Baker, did you want to say anything? You'll wrap it up?
Okay. Thank you. I'm Michael Baker, 48 years old. Oh, wait, I wasn't supposed to say that. No. There you go. I want to thank you for allowing our kids to come and present. Just another example of why I absolutely love my job. We got great kids, great staff working with these kids every day. Priscilla's making a huge difference in that club and really making tremendous impact. I wanted to send a special thank you to the city administrator for coming down to the Boys and Girls Club and touring. It's a strong message when the lead professional in a city of this size comes down and spends time with the kids at the Boys and Girls Club. So I just want to thank you for doing that. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to the kids that you came and saw. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
may I thank Mr. Baker and Ms. Hernandez for allowing the West Side Community Group to meet at the Boys and Girls Club, our new neighborhood association, restarted neighborhood association. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a couple more public comment speaker slips. We have Scott Wentz to be followed by Dr. Robert Johns, then Crucito Herrera Cruz, and Richard Robinson.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Scott Wins representing Cars Are Basic. Originally, we weren't going to show up today, but after what happened last week, we came here to underline what we feel was a major repudiation of a great deal of the programs the city of Santa Barbara has been involved in. Average unit density without adequate parking and adequate streets. The bicycle master plan that keeps going forward, where the people have just said, we don't want to lose any more parking off the streets. We don't want to lose lanes off the streets. We don't want one-way streets for bicyclists. We haven't seen that kind of a uprising in the public sentiment since Michael Self was elected to the council, and that was bulb out hell. It changed the entire council. If you aren't listening, you should be listening to the public sentiment. They don't want high-density neighborhoods. They don't want the inability to park their cars on their property. They don't want bicycles taking over the streets and then causing congestion. And the Bicycle Master Plan has pointedly ignored the issue of handicapped individuals and older individuals. So please, listen to the public. Thank you.
Dr. Robert Johns.
Good afternoon, council persons and Madam Snyder. Madam Snyder, I saw the biggest smile on your face in the Independent, and I think you should smile. That's your electoral winning positive smile. That's going to be great. Now, I have a syllogism here. That's just a deductive sort of, if a loser endorses a loser, then what do we have? What do we have? A loser endorsing. So let's sort of take this apart now. Now she had problems with her with her aide. She lied about that. We don't have to go into that, but she lied about that. The public didn't like that. And also she's having problems with Chris Mitchum. Robert Mitchum. I knew Robert Mitchum. I talked with him all the time in Montecito and Bond's drugstores, and so he was a very revered man. And so those were two very bad mistakes that did not allow the loser to go forward. She couldn't possibly win another election. So those are loser type aspects. So then what about this loser who got endorsed? Well, we already know his losing ways. He came out immediately after you had won your representative of the 24th district. He came out right after you did. He was very defensive. He's on the run. He's on the run. Now it's up to you to keep him on the defense. I have other aspects of this that I want to talk about, but I know that he is watching and listening, so I will let you know about this. Thank you, Mayor.
Crucito Herrera Cruz.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, council members, people in the public. My name is Crucito Herrera Cruz. I've been certified today in the afternoon by the city clerk, Ms. Gwendolyn Price, as an official candidate for District 1. Yo me llamo Crucito Herrera Cruz. Yo soy certificado candidato para el Distrito 1 y en la comunidad de Santa Bárbara para las elecciones del 3 de noviembre 2015. Muchas gracias, señora Pierce, por eso. I just wanted to say, I'm not new to this. I've done this in year 7. I've done this year 9, 11, 13, and 15. I went to City College. Fortunately, as a community I was born and raised in this community, business and administration, I got involved with the Board of Trustees. I was on the Board of Trustees. I transferred over. I was involved with MECHA, the student movement at City College. I was involved with the student movement of El Congreso at UCSB. I got awards from UCSB for my community contribution in political science and Chicano studies to looking at the ramifications of the historical neglect from our political council members in the past. We're not there now. We're at a new juncture. Thank you very much, council members and mayor, for implementing district-based elections and legally acquiescing to the California Voting Rights Act. I've said that since 2009, 11, and 13. I'm a candidate because I have a 3-point platform. It's pretty simple. I haven't changed. Adult youth services and education, increase our public infrastructure in our districts, and to be a good fiscal manager. That's all I request, to be a good public steward for the community. Yo creo que si están escuchando, yo puedo hacer esas cosas que le estaba advirtiendo aquí al concejal y a la diputada señora Mayor, que sí puedo hacer esto y que sí se puede y sí puede votar. Y que cambio puede venir porque si es terco, cambia y viene porque hay lucha. I say there's determination when there's political struggle, and change has happened. We have district-based elections because I was crying all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Robinson will be the final speaker.
Mayor, members, because growth, individuation, maturation is a process, child rearing requires time. Ma'am, the Riviera of America is that sort of place where generations of wealthy and rich folks, in order to raise their youngsters, have congregated, dating back more than a century when the Chase family envisioned this nirvana in Chumash territory. Santa Barbara is a sanctuary for those today who are seeking escape from big city life. Because, however, Caesar's world presently is encroaching, vis-a-vis his homelessness, blight, and resultant crime, we may lose Erewhon, its spirit, and our souls. God is protecting us as we grow into a brave new world that is increasingly problematic. Jesus is returning. Truth is rushing down the centuries as lies, superstition, and other error leave politics and this community. As cutting-edge, high-tech, state-of-the-art technology improve, and law enforcement for Chief Sanchez and Sheriff Brown improves. You are of the people, and the natural affection that you have shall have proven a century from now that your vision was protecting generations of kids who need your protection right now. So as you discuss your capital improved budget, and consider the grand jury report, please remember God loves you. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comment. Move on. We move the staff communications item up. And Ms. Zachary, thank you for coming up here. And I know we've received a lot of inquiries over the weekend, and there's been some media about the Andre Clark Bird Refuge. And so if you could give us an update, that would be appreciative.
Madam Mayor, council members, Jill Zachary, Parks and Recreation. Just want to give you an update on, clearly we are experiencing something we've experienced before. We call it an odor event. It's when we have an algal bloom at the bird refuge, and as it dies off, it creates hydrogen sulfide, which leads to the noxious odor, which is very unpleasant for anyone in the vicinity of the bird refuge or if you happen to live in that watershed. We've been, for many years, the city's been identifying potential solutions, implementing some of those solutions, and more recently really taking another hard look at what we should be doing long-term to develop a more sustainable, I'll bet a managed system, because it will need to always be managed, that will minimize the potential for this to occur. One of the challenges we face today is that because of the drought, water levels are really low. One of the techniques we've used in the past is to take a skiff that we have and motor it around the bird refuge to try to increase the oxygen content in the water. That's essentially what contributes to the algal bloom. We can't actually really get a boat in there safely and keep it in the water. It's usually 3 to 4 feet deep. It's probably between 1 and 2 in many locations. We've also, in recent history, put potable water in the bird refuge. That's not an option today, obviously, considering the drought conditions. That said, in the last about six or 7 years, we've done a number of things. We've piloted putting microbes in the water that would consume the sediment and the organic material. The idea that our objective is to get the depth of the lake to increase. If we were to be able to achieve that, it would improve circulation, and then we'd have potentially the ability to put in automatic or solar-powered aerators. We've actually looked at that technology. We don't have the depth right now for the bird refuge to do that. We also started a pilot study in 2012, and you can still see the bubblers sort of near the Weir Gate, with the idea that if we added oxygen in certain locations, we could increase the dissolved oxygen, which would then, combined with the microbes, lead to that sediment breakdown, increasing the depth that would allow us to look at other technologies. Similarly, we do have a 5-year permit which allows us to remove vegetation, particularly from the stormwater culverts, which hopefully when it does rain, we get more input of water. Essentially, we have no natural source of water for the bird refuge anymore. In prior years, we even had a well. That well silted up in the 50s. And over those intervening years, as I mentioned, the city's looked at a variety of options between dredging, restarting a well, more freshwater inputs, potable water, intertidal flushing, which is part of the reason why we have a Weir Gate there. And those have, I think, helped in part. Our odor events are probably fewer than they once were, once upon a time. The pilot studies that we've done to date are essentially redirecting us right back to those same solutions in 1985, looking at the feasibility of dredging, and essentially looking at ways, if we were able to dredge, how we would recontour the bird refuge to create deeper areas and more shallow areas, because the idea of actually trying to remove that material off-site is fairly significant and probably quite costly. So we're in the process of having a dredging company and a soils engineer look at that very issue. And then similarly look at the feasibility of putting other water in the bird refuge, non-potable water, water that wouldn't be potentially used as drinking water. There are potential wells, as an old well on the zoo property that we're investigating. There's also one on the Clark Estate, but we're looking more closely at the one at the zoo to determine, could it be re-drilled? What type of water is it? Is it feasible to put that water in the bird refuge? We anticipate that work effort will give us much more information by the end of the calendar year, and we'll be able to have a sense of what kind of conceptual plan we could develop. The challenges that we have at the bird refuge is it is a wetland. It's regulated by state, federal, and local agencies. Just the permits we have right now to maintain the culverts come from 5 different agencies, both local, state, and federal. So any long-term solution is a massive restoration effort that would require a significant amount of permitting. That said, it's a priority project of the Creeks Division. We have funding in the capital program to move it forward and are actively working on it. We anticipate, as with other odor events, they have a cycle. Eventually, it stops breaking down, the sulfide goes away, and we go into another state. Looking back at all of our records, and we have copious records on trying to track when and how and why and what are the different conditions, as well as quite a bit of water quality data, it's usually a 5 to 7 day cycle. And pretty much kind of started in earnest on Friday of last week, so we're Tuesday, we potentially have a few more days. At times it hasn't seemed as bad even in the last day or two, but clearly depending on which way the wind's blowing, different people are affected. So hopefully that provides you with some more information. I did forward to Council a fact sheet that we developed in 2013 that we give out to the public, and then kind of a chronology of how the city's really tried to tackle this issue for so long.
Any questions?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Kalan.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's right.
This matter is not agendized in a way that allows for council discussion. The Brown Act is very clear that a member of staff may make a brief report on his or her own activities. I think you've heard that, and I think you need to leave it at that.
Okay. So if we wanted, we can bring this back if we want to take a future action item. But thank you for that update. So thank you very much. All right. We move on to the consent calendar. You have some items to read.
Yes. Item number 3, adoption of ordinance to designate fishing areas on Stearns Wharf. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the council of the city of Santa Barbara, amending the Santa Barbara Municipal Code by adding section 17.13.060 to designate fishing areas on Stearns Wharf. Item number 4, adoption of solar energy system permanence ordinance. The recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara adding Chapter 22.91 to the Municipal Code and amending Sections 28.04.050 and 28.93.030 relating to permitting procedures and construction requirements for solar energy systems. Item number 5, approval of license and introduction of ordinance for lease agreement with D&G Lynn LLC for an automobile dealership at the airport, including recommendation B, that council introduce and subsequently adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara approving and authorizing the airport director to execute a 20-year lease agreement with 2 5-year options for 167,713 square feet of land at 6210 Hollister Avenue at the Santa Barbara Airport with D&G Lynn LLC, a California limited liability company, at a monthly rental of $20,000 exclusive of utilities, effective upon issuance of a certificate of occupancy by the city. And item number 11, introduction of ordinance for grant funding agreement for recycled water plant replacement project. Recommendation that council introduce and subsequently adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara authorizing the approval and execution by the Public Works Director of a Proposition 84 Integrated Regional Water Management Subgrant Agreement with the Santa Barbara County Water Agency pertaining to the grant funding award of $1,045,222 for the City of Santa Barbara Recycled Water Enhancement or Replacement Project.
Thank you. Without further objection, we'll waive further reading. We have speaker slips for item 13, which is the grand jury response to the zoning information reports. Are there any other items that need to be taken out? Okay, so Ms. Stapleman, you want to come on up? And Mr. Hart, you're waiving your 2 minutes, so you have up to 4 minutes. Thank you.
Madam Mayor and council members, I'm Raina Stapleman, the president of the Santa Barbara Association of Realtors. 2 weeks ago, we came before you and presented a lengthy request for you to make changes to your response to the grand jury. We appreciate that you have taken the time to make significant changes. We also would like to point out a discrepancy in your response so that you can make a minor modification, but most importantly, to bring clarity to the policy regarding ZIRs. We want to make sure that your grand jury response gives staff clear direction on how you interpret the municipal code and want them to carry it out. On page 3 of your response, following the bullet points in response to finding 1, you state the SBMC does not require that a ZIR include a review of the property's compliance with the building codes nor confirm the local location of property lines. We appreciate this additional wording and agree with your interpretation of the municipal code. However, on page 5, at the end of the first paragraph of response to finding 2, you state, however, if information in the record clearly indicates that an improvement is in violation of the zoning ordinance or lacks the necessary building permit, staff must note it as a violation. In your original draft, this exact language was used also in recommendation 3. You have removed it from that section but left it in finding 2. This is probably an oversight. Additionally, in your response to recommendation 10, you report to the grand jury that the ZIR working group also recommended that the scope and content of the ZIR be reviewed to only include information that is relevant, important, and consistent with the zoning ordinance requirements. The Planning Commission and City Council concurred with this recommendation. City staff is in the process of developing the written procedures. This statement was not in your original response. We concur with it and appreciate that you have included it in your official response. As you state, the written procedures will follow the zoning ordinance requirements. We would like to point out again that there is no mention of the enforcement of building code violations in that statement. Please check all of 28.87.220 and you will see that the enforcement of building codes or inspections for building violations are not mentioned anywhere. As we read your response to the grand jury, other than the oversight in finding 2, as shown above, it is clear that you intend the ZIRs to return to their legislative intent of being a zoning information report. Letters that you have received from Tony Fisher, who helped draft the original language of the ordinance, and from Roy Hawthorne, the chief building inspector, who was in charge of handling ZIRs from 1988 to 1994, clearly show that building code violations were not intended to be in ZIRs and were not in ZIRs for the first 20 years. The language found in the ordinance clearly shows that also. Over the years, scope creep by staff has included building violations. The staff does not have legal authority to change ordinances, and we applaud you for returning ZIRs to be strictly zoning checks, as you indicate in your grand jury response. We have found one additional place where the wording should be changed. Here are the 2 changes that we recommend to be made before you sign the document. Page 4, 3rd paragraph, 10th line of response to recommendation 1, identifying zoning and building violations at the time of sale. The 2 words "and building" should be removed. As stated above, page 5, at the end of the 1st paragraph of response to finding 2, the last sentence should be removed. However, if information in the record clearly indicates that an improvement is in violation of the zoning ordinance or lacks the necessary building permit, staff must note it as a violation. We know that it is important to you that the practice on the street matches what you are telling the grand jury. Thank you for ensuring that zoning information reports deal only with zoning issues. We still believe that the grand jury was correct when they recommended that ZIRs be voluntary. But thank you for taking the time to hear our concern, and viva la fiesta.
Thank you. Okay, so it's back to the council. Does that make sense? I guess, I don't know, Mr. Buell or Ms. Reardon? It looks like there were, and I think you saw the letter. I think we saw the letter yesterday, so I don't know if you had a chance to review that just to be consistent with what we're saying here.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Schneider, members of the City Council. We disagree that there is an inconsistency between the 2 sentences. It's true, the zoning information report is not a building code analysis. We don't go through and look at all the systems to see if they're working, if the electrical's up to code and all that, but we do go through and do a physical inspection and look at building additions. So when we say the building violation, we're speaking more towards additions to the home that may not be within a setback or an open yard area. Those we see as being a building violation, which could result in a health and safety impact or a welfare impact, but it's not a code analysis, which is something different. So we believe we are consistent with the intent of the ordinance when we call out building additions, but I wholeheartedly agree that over the years we've increased the scope beyond which is necessary. And so the statement in regards to the last finding and recommendation that we are going to be doing these written procedures, we are really going to be looking and meeting in-house and seeing what we really care about in terms of building violations that we need to call out. And looking back even at the minutes when the ZIR ordinance was originally established back in 1974, there was discussion about identifying zoning violations and building violations, and there was comments in the minutes from Edward Heron, who was with at that time was the Santa Barbara County Board of Realtors, and they recognized that this new ZIR process would over time reduce the amount of building and zoning violations in the city. So we believe we are consistent with the intent of the ordinance, but I agree with the Board of Realtors that we have over time expanded the scope excessively. So I don't believe the wording needs to be changed.
Okay. Any comments from council on this, or just want to, Mr. Hotchkiss?
Quick question. My understanding is that when you get in anything other than straight zoning, it's because it's a health issue or health and safety issue, generally or specifically.
Mayor Schneider, members of the City Council, that's correct. It could be a health and safety issue. There's other instances when we go inside a house and the inspector feels unsafe, and I agree with the Board of Realtors that the zoning inspector is not certified in building code analysis, but if layperson goes into a house and they feel like they're going to fall through a hole in the floor, that's a concern, and that is something that we want to send to building and safety. So we don't have the expertise to do a building code analysis. I agree with that, but there are basic things that we feel are appropriate to refer to enforcement. Does that answer it?
Go ahead, Mr. Hart.
I think the challenge here is that, this is a letter to the grand jury responding to their report. This isn't the municipal code. This isn't, an ordinance. This is, and so there's a little tension, I think, between wordsmithing this excessively. We can change the language, maybe. We can not change the language, maybe. I appreciate the work that the realtors have done about this. I don't know that this is definitively changing what we actually did back when we had the big hearing, giving staff new direction. I don't want to create misinterpretation of what this letter means. I don't know that we're changing what we're doing based on this letter. I think what we tried to do is to clarify the tone of the letter primarily, because the first letter was overly bureaucratic, I think, in response to the state legislation that says this is how you have to respond to that. So I think that was our intent, is to really kind of respect the work that the grand jury did, to say to them, we appreciate what you did, but they kind of came into this in the middle of a discussion, in the middle of the evolution of the staff strategy for dealing with this issue. And we wanted to make that clear in the letter to the grand jury, that there is an effort, that we're working collaboratively with the real estate profession and with staff and everybody to kind of move this thing forward. But I feel a little uncomfortable. Those were a lot of changes to the letter, quick, rapid fire. I'm not sure I got them all. I'm not sure that they're critical. On the other hand, I think the mayor had a suggestion that we just tweak one word. She can speak to that.
I can speak to that.
And I'm fine with that too. But I just don't want people to have the impression that because we changed the text of this letter, this is sending new direction to staff. I don't think that's what's happening today. And I don't want anybody to be confused about that. So.
No, I think the clarification of what it is we're trying to do and the work we're trying to accomplish is important. And I guess I just listening to the public comment and then your response. One of their suggestions on recommendation 1, towards the bottom, the sentence starts identifying zoning and building violations, that part of the sentence. And then I heard you say it's really when it's a health and safety concern. Would it be consistent with practice if instead of the word building you add health and safety violations? I think, or well, I guess that's just a suggestion just to try to be responsive.
Mayor Schneider, members of the council, I understand the concern. I have concern with using the word health and safety because that causes a lot of confusion in the community.
Okay.
Because it is a zoning report, but it does say in the code the required contents of a ZIR, any known nonconformities or violations of any ordinance or law. And we ratchet that down to violations that pertain to development, community development. But we do have some discretion on what things we need to call out and not. And I've heard loud and clear from the council as well as the planning commission and in these working groups the concerns regarding the things we call out. And so I have an interest in really reviewing everything to see if it's warranted bringing it up to that level. So I've heard the council, and in terms of really looking at the violations we identify when it doesn't involve zoning to make sure they're appropriate that we're calling out. So I wouldn't agree with changing that word to health and safety.
And the other item, taking out that sentence, I think I'm going to have to agree with Mr. Hart in that we want to be consistent with what we're actually doing. Now we're looking at updating what we're doing or amending what we're doing or clarifying what we're doing. But it is true that actually today when there is a violation of the zoning ordinance or there's building permits that there aren't any building permits, you do cite it as a violation. That's an accurate statement. So there's a disagreement of what to do, but I think in terms of saying what we are currently doing in the report makes sense. And then, as you said, as we move forward with the new with the new guidance and the written policies, and as we're clarifying that could be clarified even further. But as of right now, I think that statement's accurate. There's a disagreement about it, but it's accurate. Okay. All right. Anything else? Or, this is part of the consent calendar. We can vote on it with the consent, or we can vote on it separately, however anyone wants to. I need a motion, though.
Move the consent calendar.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. We will continue this conversation for sure. Appreciate you speaking out. All right. So why don't we move on to item number 15.
Capital Improvement Projects Annual Report for Fiscal Year 2015.
Mr. Kelly.
Good afternoon. Pat Kelly, Assistant Public Works Director, City Engineer. And I am pleased to be here today to give you a snapshot of the city's capital program, which involves just about all city funds and city departments. As a snapshot, not all the projects are going to be shown. However, it's intended to give you a good idea of what we're up to as far as design and construction regarding the city's significant infrastructure. The presentation mostly focuses on the fourth quarter. I have a lot of information about that, but also cover the whole year. And then at the end, I have a video from City TV regarding the work on Lower State Street. So I think you've seen this before, and I think that it's really difficult to see, so I apologize for that. But it shows the location and color of all the different projects that we've had around town. And just for your information, we do have a website on the Engineering Division website for Public Works that you can go to and see this information in detail. So for the fourth quarter, talk about 6 completed projects, Lower Mission Creek and Punta Gorda, Lower Sycamore Creek. We'll be talking about Lower Mission Creek in a minute. And Punta Gorda, some work around the Morton Bay Fig Tree that is associated with some work on the Lower Mission Creek project. And then some work at our wastewater treatment plant, some pavement maintenance, a new well, and then some significant sewer maintenance. So here's one of the highlights of what I want to talk about today, and it's regarding the Lower Sycamore Creek at Punta Gorda. And this project, replaced the Punta Gorda Street Bridge, as well as widening the creek there between Punta Gorda and the freeway. And what you see here is a picture of the old, very narrow bridge, I think just at 20 feet. Now we have much wider, a new bridge as you look down towards the freeway. And what you see here is an adjacent trailer park. And in order to get this project moving forward, there was a significant amount of preparation to get it moving forward. And you may recall that at one time we came to the council and this trailer park had a 30-foot encroachment permit into the right-of-way from which we were able, where the creek was. And so after a significant amount of effort, that permit was terminated. We worked carefully with the trailer park, and the result was that there's a significant reorganization within the park, and there was some loss of some units. However, we were able to work with them and the fire department to redesign the internal circulation and also be able to restore access off of Punta Gorda, which was a significant question that they had had. Now, I think what's really important about this project is that this neighborhood flooded twice in 1995. Most people are familiar with the January 10th flood that came along Mission Creek. But a lot of people don't realize that on March 10th, this neighborhood flooded again almost as severely. And as such is that this is an important first step to reduce the probability of flooding in this neighborhood. A key effort was by Caltrans as part of the 101 operational improvements. They significantly widened the bridge underneath the freeway, but they didn't open all the elements of that bridge. So they significantly increased the capacity, but they still reduced the potential capacity by about 1/3. And so I just wanted to let you know is that we are moving forward with some studies to figure out what it's going to take to get Caltrans, what information they need in order to move forward with that work, because they didn't open up the outer bays because they're feared downstream flooding. And so what we want to show is the consequences of upstream flooding versus downstream flooding. Before I move on, just this project had some very interesting key features. One was a very tall Southern California Edison transmission pole that needed to be relocated. And because of working with Edison, there were some delays. And in fact, we have a claim that is in progress with Edison regarding that. Constructing a new modern sewer siphon, and also repairing bank protection along with habitat planting. And over time, these willows, there's some sycamores in there, and over time, the sycamores will be seen rather than look like a creek. Here's some of the routine work that we do around town, and that's the slurry seal. Last year we had $1 million award. Just today you awarded another contract for slurry seal for Zone 2. The Zone 1, of which this completed work was for the east side and the lower Riviera. The work that you awarded today was for the Upper State Street and San Roque neighborhoods, and we're moving away from the slurry seal and doing more resurfacing, as I believe was explained in the Council Agenda report. Here is the picture of our completed well. This is the old wells site, and this is our new well, and we're in the process of completing the landscaping and then also putting up protection around here, so hopefully to landscape it and hide this production well. It'll be about 420 gallons per minute, and that is scheduled to be completed by Halloween. So we also have a significant amount of construction in progress. As a matter of fact, 18 existing contracts, large and small, valued at about $45 million. And I'll be showing you some of the larger ones, more interesting ones. And again, as I noted earlier, is that you can go on the city's Public Works Engineering website interactive map. We're kind of proud of that. That you can go in and see the location of projects under design and construction. Here's Cabrillo Boulevard. This is going to be another feature, is that in July, the contractor completed the mountainside demolition of the bridge and started construction of the new bridge in upstream banks. This summer, a temporary pedestrian bridge will be installed on the beach side to accommodate the next construction phase when traffic is moved over to the north side of the completed new bridge, while the south side is being demolished and replaced as planned. The finished project includes some restoration of the Mission Creek Lagoon per the Lagoon Master Plan that was developed as part of the Lower Mission Creek project approvals. The project is scheduled to be completed by the end of 2016, and I must say I want to express appreciation for people's patience with the reduction of 4 lanes to 2 and the Stearns Wharf detouring during the construction period. I just want to point out that personally, last Sunday afternoon while driving on Cabrillo Boulevard, I didn't find the detouring or lane reductions much of a problem. The Coda Street Bridge is a key project of the Lower Mission Creek project, and it is moving along quite well. The existing bridge has been demolished, and all the debris has been removed, and the bridge abutment piles have just been completed, and the contractor is moving forward with that work. The new width of the channel with the placement of the new abutments will accommodate the added flow of the Lower Mission Creek project. In the next 2 months, the contractor will be finishing the construction of the bridge abutments, channel banks, and some of the walls, and the creek bed, which includes some fish passage features. They're planning to be out of the creek by October and finish the bridge deck, roadway approaches, and landscaping by January. This project is 88% funded and is on track to be completed by the end of this year. Mason Street is another bridge that's part of the Lower Mission Creek project. And this one is quite fascinating from the perspective that we've done a lot of coordination with our flood control district. Significant progress has been made to date as the contractor has completed the installation of the abutments and walls on the easterly side of the creek. And the creek has been significantly widened, almost doubled at this location. And now the water is being routed on the side of the creek where the construction was just completed.
Mr. Kelly, forgive me, is that a recent picture? Last few weeks, you think?
No, it's a little bit older than that.
Okay, thank you.
It's a very photogenic site, I just want to say. I've talked about the big construction down there, and I encourage everybody to check out that site and also Cabrillo. Some of the channel wall construction adjacent to the bridge was financed through a cost-sharing agreement that we brought here to council with the County Flood Control District. The Flood Control District used the assessment fees that you see when you get your property tax bill. The county has taken advantage of the city's bridge construction and has awarded a separate channel wall construction and is extending the walls of the Lower Mission Creek project. Once these projects are completed, the county only has a short channel section just southerly of the railroad tracks and a diversion where north of the freeway in order to double the capacity of Mission Creek, which is in line with the Lower Mission Creek project. from about 1,500 cubic feet per second to over 3,400. This will go a long way to reduce the severity of floods, such as we experienced in January 1995, most people are familiar with. But a lot of people aren't familiar with that the flooding of the depot in 1998 and also in 2005 and several other occasions. And so this project will reduce and eliminate much of that inconvenience. And the project is on schedule to be completed in the early half of 2016. And here's one of the city's permeable paver projects. This one is being managed by Facilities. Creeks has got funding for several other projects around town. In fact, we have another one that is going along at Veracruz Alley, and also that goes around the the Alice Keck Memorial Gardens. This is grant funding, and it replaces the asphalt paving and permeable pavers at the city-owned lots next to the Parks and Recreation and Facilities offices off Laguna. It was awarded in June 2015 and is expected to be completed by the end of this year. Here's a little follow-up of the Alameda well replacement. After the well was drilled, in between park activities, between summer solstice and fiesta, snuck in there and did some of the electrical work and some additional piping, and also did much of the landscaping in preparation for the city's water resource crews to install the submersible pump that we anticipate to have ready in the next month or so. So we have a significant amount of work in design also, but before I move there, I wanted to describe a maintenance event that we had in town. Not quite the event that Jill described down at the bird refuge, but here's an example of some of the hidden infrastructure that we have. You know, we're familiar with seeing the pavement resurfacing projects and the potholes, but here's an example of something that the public will be experiencing too more often, is that we have an old infrastructure of our traffic signals, and so these are some of the things that we're finding, just corroded old projects of conduits that sometimes create the signals to go down and on flash. And so we'll see that more and more often. And a little metaphor I'd worked up was that as I am retiring, I'm getting an opportunity to play more golf. And I had an experience recently that you have to really look at the expiration date on some of these things, on the suntan lotion that you use. And much in the same way that we have expiration dates on some of our infrastructure, that if you don't look at the expiration date of your suntan lotion when you're going out and playing golf, you can get a really bad burn. And so, and be a significant inconvenience. It's a bit of a weak one, but you know, it is my last meeting, so I figure I can maybe pull off this. No more, hopefully no more jokes.
Let's be clear, you're not expiring.
Not yet. So here is a very interesting project that one of the many interesting projects we have in town, and this is in design, and it is the Las Positas Cliff Drive intersection, where we're planning a roundabout, and it's about 50% funded by grants and the rest by the city. And it will do a significant amount of improvements to reduce queuing at the intersection and also be a great gateway to the city, which I think is significant justifications for the city's participation. And it is being coordinated with another grant project that the city is working on regarding the Las Positas Multi-Purpose Pathway Project. Here's a lot of the routine maintenance that we don't get to see, and this is at the El Estero Treatment Plant. It's a significant effort, as you can see, over $21 million to improve the treatment of our effluent into the ocean, be more efficient and more water-wise. This construction is scheduled to start in early 2016. Here's a pie chart of the work that we've done, completed work. In attachment 2 of the Council General Report has some additional detail. For this fiscal year, we completed $27 million of construction. and about 5.5 of that was provided through grant funding. Much of the other work, as you can see, water, wastewater, that's an enterprise and self-funded, as long as with waterfront and airport and downtown. And then here's some work left over from the successor agency. And we really don't have any general fund construction this fiscal year. And here's the graph that you've seen many times, and it shows the completed work that we've had over the years. This last year is 27. We project $40 million next year. And that's about an average of $49 million in the last 5 and $43 over the last 10. And going back to 1993, when I started, is that over $600 million of work has been completed. And when you look at, many of the Office of Governmental Information, they talk about a multiplier of public works construction to jobs and gross domestic product of local agencies. So by our water rates, wastewater rates, and the grants they've been doing is that we have the city's capital program not only has been maintaining the infrastructure for service to the public, but also maintaining some economic benefit to the community. And before I move on to the video, I'd just like to say, as I've noted, this is my last CIP presentation. I'm retiring after 22 years with the city, and that's after 42 years as being an engineer. It has been a privilege to work in Santa Barbara for the public and for the many councils that I've worked with and council members. We have a significant, very polished and professional leadership here in the city, and I'm glad that I am going to be able to remain in the city and live here. And I look forward to seeing you and the successors to you and my successor to continue to improve and make this a beautiful place to live. So thank you very much. And with that, I think this will get going.
If you've been down to the waterfront recently, you've noticed a lot of construction in the lower State Street area. The projects range from City Public Works CIP projects to private land development projects. The city staff, through the land development team, has coordinated construction schedules in order to minimize the impact on residents, visitors, and businesses.
The city's land development team is comprised of members from the Public Works Department, Community Development Department, the Fire Department, and other divisions within the city. Significant amount of coordination is required for these public and private projects. Every individual project has its own schedule and impacts to the road and the public right-of-way. So it is a task to coordinate all these individual projects, but in the scheme of things so that we have a good coordination in the overall scheduling of these projects so that traffic control can be coordinated. That's one of the most significant issues that we have to deal with is the coordination and the use of the public right-of-way with traffic control so that individual projects can succeed, but the general public can succeed in getting around during the construction of this Lower State Street impact area.
The construction area is between Cabrillo Boulevard, Yananali Street, Anacapa Street, and Lower Mission Creek.
In my 24-year career at the city, this is the highest impact of an area that I've seen. So it's a significant event, and it's going to be amazing when it's all completed. And the very good part of all this is that a lot of these projects are within a general same time frame.
Currently, the public works projects include 2 Mission Creek bridge replacements, one on Cabrillo Boulevard and the other on Mason Street, and a 2-phase Lower Mission Creek flood control channel improvement project. These projects are scheduled to be finished in 2016.
Our bridge projects are replacing very old bridges that were considered structurally deficient. So we are providing improvements for the future. And as part of those improvements to the structural capacity of the bridge, we're also, in coordination with our Historic Landmarks Commission, providing other aesthetic improvements. And the bottom line is that to provide a more safe and beautiful Santa Barbara.
The Cabrillo Bridge project, which started in 2014, is in stage 2 of construction. During this stage, the north side of the bridge will undergo foundation work and repairs to the creek walls. A temporary pedestrian bridge will be constructed to allow easy access for cyclists and pedestrians to enjoy the beautiful waterfront.
One of the biggest challenges with all these projects in the same vicinity is getting the traffic control plans to coincide, and the timing of the traffic control plans and the use of the public right-of-way, be it sidewalk closures or lane closures or street closures. We're trying to minimize the impact to the public while meet the needs of the individual projects.
We have a detour on Yananali Street. We encourage people that are getting off the Garden Street Freeway, if they want to go to Stearns Wharf, or they want to go to West Beach, or they want to go to the harbor, or downtown, to turn right on Yananali, and then to turn left onto State Street and come down here to the beach and avoid the bottleneck. Cabrillo Boulevard is a primary arterial. It's also the primary beach access of the waterfront. So Public Works identified that early in this project, and that's how we came up with the staging for this project. So we're maintaining one lane in each direction during construction for vehicle traffic. We also have bike access and pedestrian access.
In addition to the Public Works projects, there are numerous private projects that include the Entrada de Santa Barbara, the Museum of Exploration and Innovation, the 101 State Street Hotel, and the Sonos office building.
The largest of them is the Entrada project. It's a hotel project, and it's going to be occupying 3 of the 4 corners of State and Mason Streets. And part of the project will be a brand new parking garage available to the public.
In addition to these projects that are all underway, there are also a couple of future projects, such as the Anacapa-Cabrillo intersection improvements and improvements at the railroad crossing near the train station.
The city recently received grant funding from the California Public Utilities Commission for improvements at the railroad crossing related to pedestrian and safety features. And so that work will be towards the end of the Entrada project, and we're looking forward to those improvements, as these are 100% grant funds for public benefit and safety. The Anacapa intersection project is part of a Highway Safety Improvement Program grant fund, and it will be coordinated with our Cabrillo Bridge Replacement Project, and it will be scheduled to coincide with the bridge construction. So from the public's perspective, it'll appear to be one project.
Everything is still happening down here, from the parks, the arts and crafts show, the businesses on Lower State Street, Helena Avenue, Anacapa, Mason Street. Everybody's open. We've been working with them on business open signs and just general public information about the different businesses. So come down here, just plan ahead.
Any questions?
I don't see any public comment speaker slips, but first off, just want to thank you for 22 years of service with the city. And I can't remember if it was 2006 or 2007 when we went to the Coastal Commission meeting for the coastal development permit for all the Lower Mission Creek project. And you said then, well, when those bridges get replaced, that's when I'm retiring. So guess what? So it's great that those things are coinciding, and just I know that has been in particular something that you've been interested in, not to mention all the other amazing, would you say, $600 million worth of public works. You spend a lot of money for the city. Thank you. And we hope when you're playing golf, we'll be at Muni, and lots of rounds at the municipal golf course. But we really do appreciate your longtime service and commitment to the city of Santa Barbara. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Rouse?
Can I still call your cell phone when they do unscheduled maintenance in front of my business pad?
Anytime.
Yeah.
I think I'm on your speed dial, aren't I?
There you go. There you go. Well, we appreciate this, and we know we're going to have a great time to celebrate, I think, next week, right?
Yes, indeed.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. So there was no motion needed for that. It was just to receive the report. So we'll move on to item number 16.
Appeal of Planning Commission approval of an amended coastal development permit for a new pool at 3425 Sea Ledge Lane.
Okay, this is an appeal, so just to let everyone know what the process is, we're going to have a staff report, and I see Commissioner Addison Thompson here if he wants to speak after the staff report about the Planning Commission process, and then the appellant, No, yes, the appellant will have up to 30 minutes to speak on the item. The applicant will also have up to 30 minutes to speak. Then it goes to public comment, and then if there's any time left available between the applicant or the appellant, you can use the balance of that time after public comment. And then when I say it's to the council, it means it's deliberative between the 7 of us here. We may have questions for someone, but really at that point, it's up to us to make a final decision. And before I get to the staff presentation, I want to make sure and ask my colleagues if there are any ex parte communications related to this project that we need to disclose.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Francisco.
I had probably a 5-minute discussion with the applicant, but it was not related to substantive issues of this appeal.
Okay. Anyone else? I spoke with the applicant right after the appeal was filed, basically to go over what the process of an appeal would look like. So that was the extent to the conversation after the appeal was filed. Mr. Hotchkiss.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We had a brief conversation. We've been business associates in the past, nothing to do with this. And I said, not only that, we can't even get close to it, and he agreed. So.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? All right. Okay. Please, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the council. We are here for your council to consider an appeal of the Planning Commission for approval of a swimming pool on a bluff-top property at 3425 Sea Ledge Lane. The main appellant concerns with the construction of this pool include the stability of the bluff and potential for landslides of the property, which is north of her residence. Also, the allowance of a pool during the Stage 3 drought situation. Her appellant letter also includes examples of just some other past slides that have happened in this area. A project description of what the Planning Commission approved is a 500 square foot pool and spa, a new deck, associated pool equipment and safety fencing, a French drain system below the pool. The Planning Commission was required for approval of this because it was an amendment to a coastal development permit that had previously been issued on the residence. On May 2nd of 2013, the Planning Commission approved a coastal development permit for a remodel and addition to the residence on this property. As you saw at the site visit, the home is currently under construction, and during the construction phase, the applicant decided that they'd want to amend their coastal permit to add a pool. In June of this year, the Planning Commission approved an amendment to that coastal permit for the pool, spa, deck, and fencing. This is a vicinity map of where the project's located. It's between the ocean and Cliff Drive at the western edge of the city, at the end of a private lane on Sea Ledge Lane. The applicant's site is the furthest eastern home off of Sea Ledge Lane, with the appellant's property immediately to the south. On the overhead, it's the property at 3407 Sea Ledge Lane. The pool is at 3425 Sea Ledge Lane. These are some photos of the house that existed, and it's really just to give you an orientation as to where the pool is proposed. But this is existing decking as part of the previous house before it was remodeled. Again, this is the area of where the pool would be proposed. Looking at it from the west, the existing retaining wall is along this line. This is a site plan. It's kind of hard to read, and I know that the applicant will carefully go through the site plan, but this is the existing residence currently under construction. This is where the proposed pool and spa would go. The pool equipment area, the yellow is fencing for associated with the pool. They are proposing a couple of drains, and the French drain would go under the pool, an outlet in this direction. Currently, there is an existing retaining wall, which is along here. And that, previously in 1998, that area of the slope failed, and what was there was 3 rows of planter walls that slid. At the time, they requested an emergency coastal permit. However, the city did determine that it wasn't in imminent danger and required the applicants to go through the standard permitting process. In 2000, the Planning Commission granted the coastal permit for a 105-foot-long concrete retaining wall that was approved with caissons and tiebacks at the time, and then another 80-foot-long redwood retaining wall, which is 8 feet below. It's hard to see the one below because it's covered in landscaping. A building permit was issued for these walls. It was approved with the caissons, which I believe at the Planning Commission were discussed at a depth of about 35 feet. However, when it went through the building permit process, it wasn't required to do the tiebacks. For any project in our coastal zone, this is in the appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone, requires compliance with our local coastal plan. And as part of that review, any project, we require a geologic evaluation to see where we require a licensed geology to see what the normal rate of erosion would be on a property over 75 years, which is the expected life of that property. The geologist for this specific case determined that the top of the bluff is the existing retaining wall. The geologist determined that the rate of retreat due to wave attack and erosion for this particular property was 0 inches. And the reason for their determination was just an evaluation of the existing retaining wall that has not moved over the past few years. Also, because this property is above a house that is actually the bluff that fronts the ocean, it's not subject to wave attack because of the residence location below. And it benefits from a rock revetment that is down in the sand area below the appellant and neighboring property. The geologist also made a determination in the report that the weight of the water and the pool structure would be less than the weight of soil to be removed and could be engineered with the proposed caissons. The recommendations from the geologist's report included that the construction as proposed would not impact the existing retaining wall or slope stability. It is to be built on a self-supporting caisson design that isn't tied to the existing retaining wall, so it's a standalone system. It will have 5 drilled piles below the depth of the existing caissons for the retaining wall. 4 of those caissons will be below the pool, 1 will be below the spa. As an added measure, just for added safety, is a proposed French drain below the pool the outlet would be visible to the public eye in the case that should there be a leakage of the pool, it can be detected and remediated and taken care of. This is a section of the pool as if you were standing on the other side of the retaining wall looking north. So it's the spa with caissons with the pool going deeper as you go east on the site. The bottom portion is the French drain. The original coastal development permit did require Tier 3 stormwater management program measures. They added 2 site drains for collection of the existing drainage pipes. They did a 60-square-foot bioretention planter box and reduced impermeable surfaces by about 260 square feet. It was found that no additional swim requirements would be required for the pool. But they did add, they are adding the French drain. And in addition, at the Planning Commission, it was discussed that they're adding 3 additional catch basins in the area below the deck for to capture more water. Another concern of the appellant that she raised in her letter is that how could the city be approving a pool when we're in a stage 3 drought? On May 5th, the City Council did declare a stage 3 drought with mandatory water use regulations. Pools were a consideration whether they should be prohibited or not. The city issues approximately 14 permits a year for pools, and it was determined that it wasn't significant enough of a savings in water to warrant precluding the addition of any pools. So the stage 3 drought requirements did not include a prohibition, but it did add that pools and spas must be equipped with a cover when not in use. And there's also the added measure that you can't drain or refill an existing pool by more than 1/3 unless it's authorized. Of course, they'd get to fill it the first time, but after that, they'd have to comply with the city rules. So the Planning Commission, in taking action on their project, considered the geologist evaluation and the recommendations, the design of the pool. At the hearing of the Planning Commission, the applicant team did include their geologist, their architect, their structural person, and the pool installer. We're all available to answer a number of questions that the Planning Commission had on the structural construction of the pool, the stability of the bluff, etc. The Planning Commission ultimately voted 5-1 to approve the amendment to the coastal development permit. One commissioner was absent. The chair of our commission is available today, Mr. Addison Thompson, if you were to have any questions. Due to the sensitivity of the site and careful consideration, the Planning Commission did add some conditions from what was being recommended. They wanted a condition added that if any leakage is observed from the French drain, that an investigation by a professional be called for immediately with the response plan submitted to our building official. And if there's any threat of stability to the pool foundation that requires drainage of the pool, that it be done with all repairs submitted immediately to the building, all plans for repairs to the building official. They've also called for construction monitoring of the integrity of the existing retaining wall at various stages. They want monitoring during construction, post-filling of the pool, and I believe 6 months after the pool has been operational. And they also asked that the construction of the pool be done during the dry season, from April to October. All of these were made conditions added to the resolution. The Planning Commission did make the findings that the project is consistent with the policies of the Coastal Act. It's not adversely affecting coastal resources, including views or public access. The addition is proposed outside of the 75-year Sea Cliff Retreat line as established by a geologist, and that it's consistent with the city's local coastal act, which they found the pool, spa deck, and fencing is compatible with the Bluff-Top neighborhood. It's not going to impact views or public view quarters. It will not impact public access. It is not an archaeologically sensitive site and addresses the potential for drainage hazards on the bluff. That concludes our presentation. We do recommend that the City Council deny the appeal and uphold the Planning Commission approval of this amendment to the Coastal Development Permit. We do have here the Chief Building Official for any questions on construction of the pool, and we're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead. Mr. Thompson, do you want to add anything at this point? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It looks like I'm out of uniform, though. Y'all are ready for fiesta. Okay, we've looked at this property 3 times. The original CDP, we did an informal review for the substantial conformance, and the second time around, and then we looked at the pool application. We had a 2.5-hour public hearing over the pool, and even though it's a coastal development permit, the primary focus of the discussion was slope stability for the pool, not coastal access or anything like that. I was concerned enough about the slope stability that I even prevailed upon the chief building official, Mr. Stuffler, to spend an enjoyable afternoon with us for a 2.5-hour hearing so that he could give us his perspective and the city staff's perspective on the design. And you all know I'm an engineer by background, so we spent a long time talking about the weights of dry soil, wet soil, concrete and rebar and water. And after the end of 2.5 hours of discussion, it became pretty obvious that even though it'll be difficult for them to install a pool, it will actually make the bluff more stable than it is today in its current condition. So as you already heard, it was a 5-1 vote to approve the coastal development permit modification. So any other questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. White.
Mr. Thompson, so that you have one dissentor who was there, and then as I understand from the reading material that Ms. Lodge was absent but had been in opposition to it.
Yeah, Commissioner Lodge was there for most of the discussion, but she had to leave early. And I let her make her comments early, and then she said that she would be in favor of the spa but against the pool. But neither Ms. Lodge nor Ms. Schwartz gave a reason that they were against it. They just didn't think that it was appropriate.
Okay, well, that was my question, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hotchkiss?
Your background is engineer, is that correct? Is this, or let me just say, I'm
not civil engineering.
Not civil engineering. Well, maybe this is for the building official.
But I tend to look at things from an engineering point of view, and that's the way I approach this.
Well, my impression is this is sort of over-designed, if I can put it that way, with extra measures so that they're more than ample. Is that a fair way of saying this, or am I incorrectly characterizing it?
Madam Mayor, council members, it is very conservatively designed. So whether we consider that over-designed or not is probably more of a judgment, but it definitely is conservatively designed.
Yeah, in other words,
to retain the soil and maintain the integrity of the hillside.
You said it better than I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so any other questions? No. All right, so the appellant, you can come on up. You have up to 30 minutes. I'll let you know how much time you have left when you're done. Good afternoon. If you could state your name for the record.
Chris Crash Bastion, Mayor Schneider, council members. I'm going to wait till here's my first slide. Thank you for hearing my appeal. I am appealing this pool project because I am not willing to accept the potential loss of my home by this poorly placed pool. There are many reasons to object to the proposed pool. Mr. Haber has already developed his property right out to the access road along the north, and now he is proposing this pool right up to the southern edge of the slope. Additionally, as you know, we are in a stage 3 drought, and while I understand you have recently debated and decided to allow pools during this stage of the drought, this property is steps away from the ocean, making a pool unnecessary. But mostly, and most importantly, as I have stated in my letter, the area of my home and Mr. Haber's has a history of many slides, both large and small. In 1973, 2 bedrooms and a bath of my home fell to the ocean. As you can see from these pictures, in the 90s, Mr. Haber's property, exactly where the pool is going to be located, slid onto my property. Additionally, the slope directly above Mr. Haber's property has been subject to slides, as shown in these pictures, which is a different slide than from the 90s. Here are the pictures of the most recent slides on our street at the top of sea ledge, resulting in a large retaining wall being put in. And this last set of pictures that I'm showing you here shows the repairs done on the slope just below Sea Cliff when a pool leaked on one of the properties and caused a slide down Cliff Drive. Of approving a pool right on the edge of a historically unstable slope is not good planning. I have heard and reviewed all the information on the pool and its safety features. However, I have still great concern because no one knows what nature might bring us. And while the pool itself may not cause a slide, the fact is that the slope is unstable. And if a slide happens, the pool and all its corresponding water and concrete will end up in my home. A very large El Nino is predicted for this winter. The last El Nino, 10 years ago, brought down part of the hill next to the Haber property and in the turnaround. And mud and debris filled the turnaround, and the 2 storm drains located in the turnaround filled with the debris. And the rest of the mud, water, and debris came down my driveway, and I had 3 feet up on my garage door full of mud and debris from the turnaround. Another concern is that the storm drains were never engineered. So while the inlets on his property that I know are there for safety, extra drains may be sufficient, it's unlikely that 2 6-inch black plastic pipes can handle that type of drainage. I don't think that they will be sufficient. They weren't in a small slide, in a smaller El Nino than we may be having. And when those fail, all the overflow water comes down into my home. That's just the way it's designed. It just flows into my driveway. And what if we have a major earthquake? None of Mr. Haber's consultants can guarantee that that pool will withstand and not come down into my home. I don't begrudge Mr. Haber his pool, but I will not let a poorly placed engineered pool endanger my home. Mr. Harbor and his consultants are so confident in this design. However, when I tried to resolve this issue, suggesting that if he's so confident in his pool that it won't affect my property, he should be willing to back that confidence up with an insurance policy that would cover my home in the event the slope gives way. I thought this would provide a way for Mr. Harbor to have his pool while providing me with some security in case his consultants turn out to be wrong. My request was met with a statement that this wouldn't be possible since we know the slope is unstable, and therefore finding an insurance company that would cover the property would be difficult. Additionally, I was told that making that financial security extend to future property owners would make Mr. Harbor's house unsellable in the future. Needless to say, this does not make me feel secure. Either everyone has a level of comfort with the engineered design of this pool proposal, or if there is a chance that engineering and or the slope will fail and the pool will damage my property and my home. It may very well be that construction of the pool will not impact the stability of the slope, as stated in Mr. Simmons' report, but in an area with such a strong history of slides, why take the chance? For a pool in the middle of a drought on a property that is literally steps from the ocean. It would be one thing if this was someone's house, but for a pool, it just doesn't make sense. Please, please, please don't put my home in danger so a beachfront property owner can have a pool. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you have plenty of time left if you need it after public comment. So it's to the applicant.
Madam Mayor and council members, my name is Peter Becker. I'm the architect for this project. I would like to make a few general comments about our proposal and then have others on our team provide you with the details. I mainly want to stress 2 points that I believe are at the heart of the matter before you today. One, we have done everything we can to make sure our structural design is correct. And two, our scheme will actually improve the stability of the slope. Prior to our last meeting, a hearing at the Planning Commission, I had a chance to meet with the appellant, Ms. Bastian, who owns the house below our site. I told her that if I were in her position, I would be asking exactly the same questions that she is asking. I would want to make absolutely certain that the people above me were doing, without question, the right thing. In the course of our conversation, she told me about how during the early 70s, her house was starting to slide down the hill, and how her late husband had hired John Carter, the premier caisson driller in town, to put in a lot of caissons that saved her house from certain destruction. I suddenly remembered, in a strange coincidence, that I knew about the Bastian house from long ago, that it was one of John Carter's most famous saves. And it was still being talked about when a few years later I got a job with John Carter on his drilling crew, the most grueling job I've ever had. I spent more time than I like to remember toiling with the John Carter Company, drilling 2 to 3 foot diameter holes that were 60 feet and more deep and filling them with steel and concrete. The work was so hard that I only half jokingly say that it drove me to become an architect. But I did learn a great deal about the details of how slope stabilization is done, enough to know how important it is to do it just right and to get the best geologist, soils engineer, and structural engineer that you possibly can. When the owner of our project proposed building this pool, my first thoughts were just like those of the neighbor below. This had to be done perfectly and conservatively. For one thing, I didn't want to be staying up at night worrying about any possible professional liability of my own. So my office put together an extremely competent team, and the result of all their work is that I am now very certain that our proposed pool structure will not compromise the stability of the hillside. Even more, I am confident that this design will actually be improving the slope stability quite a bit, to the mutual benefit of our client and the neighbor below. Ms. Bastian knows very well the value of these sorts of caissons. Without them, her house would no longer be there. We are proposing to hold up our swimming pool using the same sort of system that John Carter famously used to save her house. And in the process, as with Carter's work, we will be making the hillside a lot more stable. Imagine for a moment that you own this site with one of the most spectacular ocean views in Santa Barbara, a huge investment. You have been told that the foundations of your house and its garden are very sound and that the hillside beneath it is very stable. But you have some extra money and you want to make absolutely certain of that. You would hire an engineer and you would get a design with a system of caissons very similar to the ones that we are proposing. But you might say, what about the weight of these caissons? They weigh more than the earth they're displacing. Added weight is not good for hillsides. It is true that the caissons do weigh more than the dirt, about 22 tons total for our 5 caissons. But it's important to consider that there is such a thing as good weight and bad weight. Just as with people, added weight from fat is bad and lessens our physical ability, but added weight from muscle is good and increases our abilities. I believe that every ounce of our caisson should be thought of as good weight, as muscle actively working to stabilize the hillside. So in my judgment, their added weight is really not a consideration. But let's say you still want to address the issue of caisson weight alone. The fact is that most of the weight of these caissons will be down very low in the earth, where weight is much less a factor. But now, after you've done so much to stabilize this hill, you decide to put a swimming pool on top of your caissons. At first blush, it might seem that we are going backwards, hindering all the expensive stabilization that we've done so far. In fact, it is just the opposite. Water weighs a lot less than earth. By scooping out the existing soil and replacing it with a pool filled with water, trucked in, of course, from some distant wet environment, we will be saving at least 43 tons. And not only that, all of the weight that we are getting rid of is at the top of the hill, the place where that weight has the most ability to destabilize a slope. To use another odd metaphor as a visual aid, imagine that someone had once parked 12 very fat Ford Excursions along the top of the slope, or say a Sherman tank, fully loaded. And we were proposing to get rid of them because they weren't doing anything to help strengthen our hillside. That, along with wanting to increase the stabilization of this hill with our caissons, is pretty much what we are requesting of you today. Thank you for your time. And now I would like to introduce Alicia Harrison, who is the agent for the applicant.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Alicia Harrison. I'm a land use planner with Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck, and I'm the agent for Mr. Habra, the owner of the property at 3425 Sea Ledge Lane. Our project team is here today, as you know, Mr. Becker, who just provided the introduction, so thank you for that. Architect for the project, as well as Tom Henson from Peter Becker's office as well. Adam Simmons is our engineering geologist. Alan Cooper is the pool contractor from Pintado Pools, and then our structural engineer is John Oltman, but he is not here today. As you know from the presentation so far and the site visit, the plans, and also what the chair from the Planning Commission shared already, you know this is a highly technical project with some very technical review and technical reports. So the team is here to answer whatever questions you might have, following our review. Staff already did a pretty thorough review. I appreciate very much of the overall the project overview. So I'm just going to skip through. I think at this point we all know where the site is located, but basically at the end of Sea Ledge Lane where the red star is shown, and the appellant property, Ms. Bastion's property, is located just below that, right there. Staff also already covered the CDP history. The house is currently under construction. We also mentioned that there's 2 existing retaining walls on the property that were approved and constructed in early 2000. And per Adam Simmons, our engineering geologist, those walls have not moved and are in very good condition, are a very essential part to the slope stability of this property. And in addition to that, there's the house below the Harbor property, which is the Bastion property, the appellant property, which also provides slope stability for the Harbor property. And then below that on the Bastion property, there's the rock revetment at the toe of the slope, which helps to reduce any erosion to the slope from wave activity. The engineering geologist determined that the rate of erosion sea cliff retreat at the Harbor property is 0, and also determined that the upper retaining wall is the top of bluff for this property, for the Harbor property. Now that's different than the natural top of bluff, which is actually located about 100 feet down on the bluff, closer to the Bastion house. Also, through the original CDP approval process, the engineering geologist determined that a 15-foot conservative setback is appropriate for habitable structures from the top of bluff. And at the time of that CDP approval, it was okay. He determined that it was acceptable for the existing spa and deck that were there, and then those are going to be replaced with the current proposal, of which he also determined would be acceptable within that 15-foot setback. So I'll try to focus on, again, since staff did such a thorough job, just try to give you some more details on the project. But we know, so this is the location of the pool and the spa. It's about 35 by 10, maximum of 6 feet deep, saltwater pool. On the west end is the spa, which is 7 by 7. She already showed the pool fencing, safety fencing that would only have a small extension onto the bluff, just because of the steepness there. We don't want to have fencing across the bluff, and we don't need to have it because it's difficult to access from that side. There's the pool equipment, which is over in this area, that will be screened or vegetated for screening. And then there's the deck area, which wraps around the main residence and a portion of the pool. It's about 1,300 square feet to replace an existing deck that was removed due to rotting. So this would be ipe or other wood material in that area. And then the addition of 2 Podocarpus graciliae plants on the western boundary of the property. So given that, the location of the site on a hillside coastal bluff, obviously through the design, we've given special care to the essential issues of drainage and stability and safety measures, and to not adversely impact the existing condition, in particular the existing retaining wall that is doing such a great job. So we achieved this by proposing the pool design is on an independent, self-supporting caisson system, so that the weight of the pool is completely independent from the existing retaining wall and existing caisson system, so that there's no impact on the existing retaining wall. The pool is also steel reinforced, so that the steel essentially becomes the walls of the pool and functions as like almost another retaining wall behind the retaining wall just for the pool, instead of standing on like more of a tabletop platform, which sometimes we see. The concrete would have a sealant to waterproof the walls, and the floor of the pool would be double thick as well, and the sides would be thicker as well to reduce the possibility for cracking. And there'd also be a cardboard expansion joints under the pool that would allow adjustments and shifts in the earthen material below the pool without causing cracking to the pool. So in addition to the reasons why the pool is not adding a significant amount of, or isn't adding weight to the bluff top and isn't impacting the retaining wall, in addition to it being on its own self-supporting foundation, it's also, as Mr. Becker explained, the pool is the pool water is approximately half the weight of the soil to be removed. And we have the calculations to show that the pool actually reduces the loading on the bluff top. So right here you see the actual calculations based on our formal engineering for the project. The soil weight is approximately 166 tons, and that would be removed. The water and pool structure weight combined, so structure and water, would be 123 tons. So the pool weighs approximately 43 tons less than the soil that it would displace. Now, and again, as Mr. Becker explained, the caissons are heavier than the soil that it would displace, but that weight is going to be lowered deeper into the hillside and distributed at a lower level so that the top weight is essentially being removed and the weight is being lowered, which is ultimately a good thing for slope stability. And again, the project geologist can talk more to that if you have more questions later. So even with the caissons, the net change is still a reduction on this bluff top property. This is just the section that staff showed you as well that shows the caissons. So there's the 5 caissons, 1 under the spa, and there's 2 here and 2 here. They are 30-inch diameter, 40 feet deep. They're deeper than the caissons for the retaining wall. They're evenly spaced to distribute the weight, and then also evenly spaced out from the caissons related to the retaining wall. And then down here, the pool section, you can also see this is, if you're looking in the east-west view, this is where you can start to see the French drain that runs under the length of the pool, and we have more pictures of that as well. But the French drain is one of the essential components proposed related to the design features for safety for the property. The French drain runs under the length of the pool to capture any escaped water and to identify a pool leak in the unlikely event that there's a pool failure. It would be gravity fed to a location, I don't have that next, to a location that would be visible for inspection on a regular basis. Someone like our engineering geologist or another professional would go out there on a regular basis, a frequent basis, which can be determined to detect to see if there's any water and any concern that needs to be addressed. And as you know, the Planning Commission then, in their conditions, kind of put into place what would happen if water was detected there. There's also there's coping on the sides of the pool to avoid sloshing onto the bluff, because obviously the goal here is to avoid any uncontrolled water and to make sure that no water goes over the side of the bluff into the bluff face that would cause any erosion. The pool has a cover box cover drain that's on the side of the pool, no drain on the bottom of the pool or the side of the pool that would be drained, out toward the bluff face. So it's on the side of the pool, which I'll show you a picture of. The fill of the pool would be manual controlled by truck. And if down the road the pool were ever to be connected to city water, there would be an auto fill, auto shut off system that would be set up for the pool. And there would be a built-in pool cover. So this just shows the plan of the pool, the spa here, the small pool here, and then this is where the cover drain cover box is. And then from this point, it connects to the already approved drainage system, which we will get into. This one shows this is the blue, shows the French drain that goes all the way along the pool, and then gravity feeds down to a location that's still on the harbor property that can be, visibly inspected. This also starts to show the drainage system that was approved as part of the original CDP. So there's several drop inlets, actually 12 altogether. There's some, I'll show you on another slide that are over here. 12 drop inlets throughout and a swale that was also approved as part of the original CDP that go into a filtration planter that slows everything down, slows the water down and filters it before it then exits onto the driveway and goes down to the 2 6-inch storm drains that's how the property has historically drained and how this property will drain. But the most, so quick, the change besides there's the pool drain cover box that would connect to the existing site drainage system. There's the French drain safety measure, and then there's also 3 new drains, which I'll show you, proposed under the deck that was being replaced, and those will also be connected to the approved system. But the most important piece of the drainage or of the pool and its relationship to the drainage is that the pool actually functions as a beneficial feature in that instead of water percolating into the ground in this 400 square foot section, it's now the pool functions as a holding pond for stormwater, so it can go all the way up the 6 inches and then slowly dissipate into the drainage system and then through the biofiltration planter before it then leaves the property. So we see that as a significant key feature and benefit to having a pool in this location. This is, these show the 3 additional area drains that would be located under the deck. And these were all of them, the 12 together, were discussed at the Planning Commission, but these were inadvertently left off of that exhibit at the time. So I just wanted to point those out, that these were not on the plans the Planning Commission saw, but we talked about drainage all through this area. So under the deck, you would have the 3 area drains, but you also have this the swale here that would pick up a runoff as well. And then all of this connects into the drainage system, which then exits onto the east side of the property. We thought it would be important. There was a little bit of a general plan and local coastal plan policy consistency discussion at the Planning Commission, so we thought we would include some comments on that for your presentation as well. Basically, for the setback and erosion issues, those are addressed by, first of all, determination of the top of bluff, measurement of erosion, which is 0, is determined by the project geologist, setting the conservative 15-foot setback, but most of all, designing a pool structure that not only doesn't exacerbate existing conditions, but helps to further stabilize the slope condition, the existing condition. As for excessive loading, as you heard from Mr. Becker in the calculations I shared with you, the project avoids excessive loading on the bluff by actually reducing the weight at the top of the bluff and redistributing that weight to deeper levels, which also contributes to stability of the bluff. Drainage, as I just explained too, also there are 12 drop inlets and area drains that pick up the water and take it all off to the eastern side where it has historically drained. And we do have Lashane and Associates, I guess, is the only other consultant that wasn't listed on the front page. They're our hydrologic consultant, and they looked at the area drains and they looked at the 2 6-inch storm drains and did an assessment of water that would, stormwater runoff from the property, both the house as well as the addition of the pool. And they find that those 2 6-inch drains are sufficient to meet the runoff, the drainage that would come from this site. And then the other 2 issues, just in terms of policy consistency, are existing public views, of which the pool and the fencing does not impact, and neighborhood compatibility that the site, the house, but also obviously this proposal is the pool, is in keeping with the size, scale, and design of the neighborhood. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Adam Simmons, who's going to specifically address some of the issues and slope failures that were raised in the appellant letter, and then we're happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Okay. You're down to 8 minutes and 53 seconds.
Madam Chair, council members, Adam Simmons, engineering geologist for the project here. And I could tell you from my experience, I've looked at a lot of these coastal bluff properties in the past, and there are areas of erosion and landslides throughout Santa Barbara County, not just the city, but the county and beyond, and that should be expected. I see erosion and slides anywhere along the bluffs, especially where wave activity is impacting the base of the slope. But these properties are a little more unique in the sense that they do have a revetment at the base of the slope, which does help tremendously for the amount of erosion, or at least reducing the amount of erosion at the base of the slope. So that is a plus. But I do see the photos that were supplied, and I'd be concerned too if I see photos showing mud coming down the hill, and I would expect that to continue. Whether it's an El Nino or if it ever rains again, hopefully it does. But that kind of erosion should be expected along the sea cliffs there, especially when they're steeper slopes or unvegetated slopes. But in our case, with the pool and house and walls supported with these caisson type foundation support, it acts as an improvement to the overall stability of the slope, and it would actually be a benefit, and hopefully that would be never called on to rely on their strength. But if there was an incident where material was moved and the caissons were there, I would hope that the downslope neighbor would thank the upslope neighbor for the time and money spent putting these huge nails or caissons into the ground, because they do provide additional support for the slope. As far as the other hillside failures in the past, there was one, the 1998 record rainfall year, 47.5 inches downtown. Most rainfall going back to 1867 as far as the charts go back. It was a tremendous rain. It was pretty busy that year. But in the failure that had occurred was due to the placement of fill materials on a slope or a pad that was created in the late 40s. The house was built in 48, so it had been sitting there for a long time, but that was a very heavy rainfall, and it definitely impacted that slope, and that was the reason for the placement of the new wall with the caissons on that by John Carter in 2000. And so now that wall is there, we've actually supported that fill material that was placed in the late 40s. So that actually is a benefit there too, just that existing wall. And I've looked at it since 1998, more recently, and it's perfect shape. There's no cracks in it at all. It looks really good. Actually, it looks like a nice supported wall there. But the pool itself would actually be set back from that, so it's separate caissons and separate support for that pool, unrelated to the wall itself, because we don't want to rely on the wall to hold the pool up. So. But the other Edison, that was fill materials placed near their pole. They had placed a kind of funky retaining wall below the power pole. I'm not sure if Edison ever admitted to any guilt there, but that being next to the drainage was the impetus for the failure of soil coming down the hill there. It had nothing to do with the rains and that. I mean, it was rain related, but more to do with the fill again placed on the slope. And then the other one, let's see, Cliff Drive. Okay, so that was the pool upslope on Cliff Drive, and I forget which one it was that failed, but I think I know which one it is. But that one, it was an older pool, and it had cracked or something. I'm not sure what happened to it, but that erosion had come down the slope there. But in this particular case for this project, there's actually a drainage system underneath, and that's why any new pools have this. For my recommendations, where we're near a slope, we have this pool that has this underlying drainage, a French drain system that actually collects the water and becomes an early detection or warning sign that there's actually an issue there, and things can be moderated or taken care of before any incidences occur. So that would be the benefit of having that drainage system beneath the pool there. But anyway, so my recommendation would be to put the pool onto the piles, and that would be a net benefit to the slope. If I was the downslope neighbor, I would feel more comfortable with that scenario than having no pool there option or no less piles, because these are just acting as great support to the caissons themselves. So it actually adds to the stability of the slope. So, and I'll turn you over to Tom Henson unless there's any questions. Or okay, we're done. Sorry, we're done.
We're done. Okay.
Hopefully 8 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Are there any public comment speaker slips? None. Okay. So the appellant, you still have some time left if you want to have any last statements before it goes back to council. It's not required? Nope. Okay. Okay. So we're done? All right. So we're going to move it to council. Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Oh, first of all, as an ex parte communication, I failed to mention that the applicant did introduce himself to me here at City Hall one day, just in passing, and indicated he would be bringing a project forward. We did not discuss the project, but I did have that communication. So on the project itself, I was curious to know what the reasons that the planning commissioners that did dissent have to say, but we don't have that specific information. I feel as if this project has done its due diligence. It obviously has a top-notch team of professionals working on it, and obviously the cost is not an object in this, but rather excellence. And so I will be able to support the project, and I would be voting to deny the appeal.
Mr. Hotchkiss?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To the appellant, if I could, would you step forward just for a moment? I know you've heard all these presentations before and seen them, and yet you still have your fears. Can you?
I do. I do.
Well, and let me say just before you say that I'm actually impressed with all the work that they did. So, but I don't want to stifle you in any way. Can you talk to me a little bit?
I hope everything we've heard today is true. I mean, I really hope that house isn't going to come tumbling down. I'm still very concerned, even though all the experts say that those 2 storm drains will take any excess water. I think they were fine when there were beach cottages along Sea Ledge Lane. I still have one. My house has not ever been redone. Right. So it's very small in comparison to all the other homes on Sea Ledge. There's a lot more homes. There's going to be more runoff because of that. So that I'm concerned about that. I would hope that someone would address that. I mean, these, who knows even who put those in? They are not engineered. They're just the things you buy at Home Depot, those big black pipes that they just go down to the beach. They're sort of hanging there on the hill. These were never engineered. I mean, our street was sort of a renegade street for many years, people doing what they wanted to do.
Right.
And that was probably somebody put those in as a safeguard. So that's my concern.
Okay.
I hope that whatever way this goes, I hope that it's true that I'm not going to have a slide problem, that the house with all its caissons will be safe up there and not come down on me. But
Good. Okay, fine. One more question. Before the pool element was added, were you worried about the house, or was the
a little
addition
bit,
of the pool?
and I discussed it with Mr. Harborough. I have not. I did sent one letter because it sticks so far out in the street. I mean, it's very hard to get by in my truck, the way the house sticks out in the street. The street is very narrow there.
Okay, but you weren't worried about the house.
I wasn't
coming
hurt.
down.
I know. I figure you own this house. It's your right to build the house that you want to have. I think
Right.
it's extremely overkill, but that's just my personal opinion. Has nothing to do what an owner of a property can do with their house. I wasn't worried. Just the pool thing really has me worried.
Thank you very much. If I could, to the applicant, I'm not sure to whom I should ask to address this question, but regarding the French drain outfall location that daylights, I guess I would ask this. How do you distinguish, let's say you see water in that pull out or drain out or whatever it is, how do you distinguish that water from just ground runoff?
That's a good question, and actually we had that discussion amongst us, but maybe not in front of the council members. But if water is seen coming out of the exit pipe of the French drain, it's certainly possible that there's water that's coming in from rainwater or groundwater or something. But the pool water will have a different signature for the total dissolved solids that's in the water. It's what we call parts per million total dissolved solids, the amount of minerals that are suspended in the water.
So if they analyze it, then you can't just look.
I can do it right then and there. I have a meter. I do water wells and things too, so I recognize some of the photos there, but of the earlier projects you were working on. But the meter will tell me what the signature of the water is. If it's saline water coming from the pool, it's going to have a different signature than groundwater versus rainwater.
Well, right now, you don't have to worry about that, unfortunately, but maybe soon you will. Okay, thank you very much. I agree with Mr. White. I think this is an incredible project. I hope this will allay your fears in the future. I think it should. I'm not an expert in this area, but I'm very impressed with the engineering and the design that's gone in. And, I hope you all end up being good neighbors, but I'm going to deny the appeal. Thank you.
Mr. Rouse?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could have Mr. Simmons come back up just for a question, please. As a layperson, I certainly understand the appellant's fears and having watched and observed those cliffs and that formation over the years and during El Niños and seen slides and whatnot. Can you describe for me the difference between what you see in these pictures and the material you see sliding down the hill versus what you have stabilized or plan to stabilize with these caissons? Is it topsoil over bedrock? Are there differences in what you see coming down the hill that's being displaced versus what you have in mind for structural?
Yes, good question, and that's true. Is the material, at least the photos that were shown, we're seeing near surface materials, the weathered materials that's being eroded and or failing. So we're talking about fill materials or loose regolith, the soil or weathered material, not wholesale landsliding in that particular, at least those 3 photos that I'd seen. So the majority of the erosion that does occur is within that top 2 or 3 foot zone of weathered materials, and a lot of times it'll take plants and things with it as part of that erosion process. But the caissons and piles for the house and pool and wall are much deeper levels. They're protecting the whole slope itself. So it's not trying to necessarily hold up 2 feet of dirt. They're actually pins that go down very deep. So they're actually stabilizing at a much greater depth, which we wouldn't be seeing if there was a failure that was deep seated. Then it would be most likely catastrophic for both properties or anybody on sea ledge if it was something this deep seated. But with these piles, it actually adds strength to the slope or pins. Just like when we have failures on a slope, we'll use piles or tiebacks that are just pins holding back the soil, the weathered materials that are prone to landsliding. So in this case, we have actually these steel and concrete pins that are supporting that material at great depth. So it's not just that upper material that you typically see with a casual walk along the beach after a heavy rainfall. It's that general loss of that 2 to 3 feet of material that you're seeing for the most part.
Thank you. And then in terms of the site itself, I mean, anytime you do, the pool notwithstanding, anytime you a project of this scope, you disturb a lot of the natural, lay of the land as it is. But we also have, I think, higher stormwater regulations than we had years ago, certainly when that whole area was developed.
Yes.
And as I recall from the staff report, are we not at the higher level of the
Tier
stormwater mitigation issues there? So as we look back then at one of the appellant's concerns about a storm event, which hopefully is right around the corner here, by the way.
Hopefully.
And the drainage in the site and the way the site will drain, that's all been taken into consideration, the square footage, the slope.
Yes.
So that whatever hits in terms of the major storm event, we're going to be able to not wash away somebody's adjacent property.
Right. It's actually made to be less than what was before. So even though there may be more impermeable surface, there's now these detention and retention. So there's a filtration system that's capturing the water from the surface water and going through these gravel sand beds, which cleans the water. And not only that, slows down the rate of removal of water off the bluff or off the property. So that's one method. And then the pool acts as a detention, so it actually would hold water temporarily and can be bled off at a slower rate once the rainfall is abated and the rainfall is no longer coming down. Then you can release that water that's filled in the pool without having to add it to the heavy rainfall that's occurring during the higher rates of 2 inches per hour or whatever the big rainfall rates are.
So in your opinion, this is an improved situation versus if the property were never touched at all?
Oh, definitely.
For this remodel?
Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hart?
One more question for Mr. Simmons. Sorry to make you go back. Just the point that the appellant made about the existing drainage system not being engineered and this new improvements being connected to that. Could you speak to that?
Okay, existing drainage, you mean the 2 6-inch pipes? That was placed prior to me, and I don't claim to be the person that designed that system or even evaluated it, but if the system that's going in is less than what was there, then it would be a net improvement on whatever is existing. But there was a group that, as part of the team, that had analyzed those 2 6-inch pipes and determined that they were adequate. Ideally, they would be nice to have a larger diameter pipe, I suppose, but there's a lot of thought process there and coastal considerations and so forth. But the idea is to review what was there previously and what is there now and see that the net balance for runoff is actually lessened. So as far as this project goes, there's actually less going into this 2 6-inch lines. Whether they're designed to carry all the water from other properties and mud and whatever else is going on is another story. But that's not really for me to dictate that that's the problem. Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'd mentioned that we do have a report from Leshane and Associates who did the calculations for the stormwater, and they have an exhibit in their report, which is part of the file for this application, that shows the larger watershed area along Sea Ledge Lane, including the runoff from the hillsides behind this residence as the larger watershed area that was included in the calculation for the overall storm runoff that would then go to these pipes. So that was all factored into, excuse me, the calculations that were done. This project's contribution to that larger calculation was determined that it was the capacity was sufficient and that this was contributing a very, very small amount. And like Adam said, or Mr. Simmons said, lesser than it was before.
Thank you.
Mr. Francisco?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The advantage of that site visit was we got to see what this place actually looks like instead of looking at site plans. And I certainly understand the appellant's concerns when you look at the steepness of the slope, and we're all familiar with how these areas slide. In my judgment, this seems like a bad place for anybody to live. Everything there, I think, is temporary in the long run. However, as far as I can tell, I think the project, including the retaining wall that's in there and the supports for the pool, it looks like it will probably improve the situation. You never know with nature. We could have an incredible storm, or we could have a tsunami or whatever. There are all kinds of things that could happen, natural events that could upend any kind of engineering assumptions. But as far as what we can do to prepare for those kinds of things, it seems to me that they've done a good job.
Ms. Murillo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, with all due respect to the neighbor, I'll have to deny your appeal, ma'am, and support the project. Thank you.
I guess I should, maybe I don't know if it was too much information. I do know the applicant. I also know the architect. I also know the appellant's consultant. So it's just a small town how these things work. But I appreciate the concerns that you have, and I can see there's a pool above me and there's water, and I get that on a initial level. I think, though, the presentation that we saw with the site visit, the engineering that's been proposed, the 2.5-hour presentation at the Planning Commission, shows that you're doing everything you can, in fact, to try to strengthen the hillside. So I'll be denying the appeal as well. We do need a motion. Mr. Hotchkiss?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we deny the appeal of Ms. Bastian, forgive me if I mispronounced your name, and uphold the decision of the Planning Commission to approve an amendment to a coastal development permit for a new pool, spa, pool equipment, and safety fencing at 3425 Sea Ledge Lane, making the findings and adopting the conditions specified on the Planning Commission Resolution number 011-15.
Okay, moved by Hotchkiss, seconded by Rouse. Anything else to the motion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're going to move on to Council Member Committee Assignment Reports. Ms. Murillo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the 50th anniversary of Medicare, put on by Health Care for All and the League of Women Voters last week, and I look forward to taking advantage of that program as I grow older. Thank you.
Anyone else? Tesla had a soft opening of their place up in, was it Hitchcock? And everyone who owns a Tesla within a 25-mile radius, I think, was there looking at other people's Teslas. So it was kind of interesting and fun. But they're very much welcomed in the city of Santa Barbara, and I know people who own Teslas are very happy. There's going to be a supercharger right there in a lounge for people who are visiting and need to charge up. So I also, because this issue came up recently offline, in that I happened to be in a Tesla with a friend of mine and was looking at the module where they have all on their mapping where all the chargers are, and our electric charging stations in our garages were not listed. So connected the Tesla salesperson to Jim Dewey, and hopefully they can work something out so when people come to visit here, they'll know that around places on the waterfront and downtown they can charge. So I thought that was good. Yeah. I wish one day I'd be able to use one of those, but that would be nice. Anything else? Okay. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
She's lost her smile.